Okay, good afternoon everyone. For today, let's go ahead and discuss the fifth module in our subject, Computer Programming 11a. So, for today, we will be talking about what we call the decision control structures. So, based on what we have learned so far in Java programming, we already know how to at least create our very basic program, which is actually the hello world, using the main method and the system.out print line. We also have learned how to declare some variables, using, of course, the different data types that we have. We were able to at least discuss the different operators, its precedence, and of course, the logical operators na meron tayo in our module number 3. In the module number 4, we also discussed what we call the getting user inputs, in which we now added a functionality where the user can now input some particular values in your program, which can actually have an interactivity with your program. So, kung napansin natin, more on basics lang talaga tayo sa Computer Programming 11a natin, especially for the midterms. So, for today, especially ngayon sa finals natin, we will actually talk about what we call the decision control structures. Now, when we say control flows or control structures, it actually specifies a specific sequence of execution of a group of statements. Some statement may need to be executed in sequential fashion. Some may have, to be repeated several times, while others may or may not be executed depending on some condition. So there are actually 3 different types of control structure in Java programming. We have sequential control structure, we have here the decision control structure, and we have what we call the repetition control structures. So for today, let's talk about what we call the sequential and decision control structures. Now, when we say sequential control structures, it's actually the most basic, okay? It's the way on how we organize those statements and how we execute those statements one after another. So basically top down ang pinaka, what do you call this one? Pattern ng execution natin. So from the top to the bottom. So for example here, assuming that we have variables A, B, C, and we declared those variable as integer data type. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to A plus B. So alam naman natin na si Java will simply execute the following by sequence line per line. So it will automatically store 1 in the A variable, 2 in the B variable, and it will automatically perform A plus B which have a value of 1 plus 2. And alam naman natin na si C is equal to 3 already. So sequential, more on sequencing naman siya. So for today, we will talk about what we call the decision control structures. Pag sinabi kasi nating decision control structure, it's the way on how you organize your program in such a way na meron ka ngayong condition. You have to at least put a specific condition to be evaluated first, and if the condition actually resulted into true, it will automatically go into a certain part of the program. Otherwise, pupunta rin siya dun sa false na magiging program natin. The behavior of the program will depend on the truthfulness of a condition being tested. And the result of the evaluation will yield to either true or false condition. Now, in order for us to at least have a better understanding on what we call the decision control structures, let me introduce to you what we call flowcharting. Okay? Pag sinabi kasi nating flowchart, ganito po yan. It's a picture of separate steps of a process in sequential order. And from now on, I want everyone to be very familiar with how we create flowcharts, kasi ito yung pinakasusundan natin every time na meron tayong problem na gagawin. So, we have the different symbols in flowchart. It looks something like this. So, meron tayo ditong oval. Yan. Usually, ang oval kasi, this is actually the start or the end of our program. We also have here the rectangle, or sometimes square yan. The rectangle actually represents process. Okay. We also have here the arrow, in which represents the flow, yan, direction or the flow. We also have here the diamond, or in which actually represents the condition. And usually, pag si diamond kasi, meron kang arrow na nakatutok kay yes or no. And depende on the truthfulness of the condition here, it will automatically go to a certain location. Yan. So, yun lang naman yung mga basic. Hindi na muna natin i-discuss yung ibang parts dito in which the delay or the, delay or wait. Pero we also have here this kind of shape, the input or output. Pero usually, naka-rectangle din yan instead na ganito. Okay, so gagawa tayo dito ng example ng flowchart natin. So I want everyone to at least go to this website, yung flowchart maker natin. Usually, I am using this one, the Lucid chart. Okay, I want you guys to sign up for an account or at least log in kung meron na kayong account na nagawa dito. Now, gagamit tayo ng tinatawag natin dito na flowchart. Ayan. So, i-ano ko to. I-delete ko lang itong ginawa kong example natin before. This is actually a sample. So, when we say decision control structure, we have to follow a certain statements in order for us to at least do this. Number one statement here is what we call the if statement. Pag sinabi kasi nating if statement, in Java programming, you have the keyword if followed by the open parenthesis followed by the Boolean expression. Pag sinabi nating Boolean expression, it can be in the form of a condition, yan, using greater than, equal, yung mga ganyan. And usually, that particular expression will have a result. Kapag ka nag-throw ito, automatic na mag-execute yung next line niya ng condition natin. So, whatever statement na nakalagay dito sa may una dito, it will automatically be executed. That's the first way on how we write that. The second way on how we write an if statement is by adding a curly braces after the expression. That simply means that we are trying to execute all of the statements inside the open and closing curly braces. So, ito kasi, pag walang open and closing curly braces, this is a valid if statement. Pero ang ma-execute lang, yung susunod lang mismo na line nung condition mo. Okay? So, whatever line na susunod dito, it will not be executed. Remember that. Pero kapag nilagyan mo yun ng open and closing curly braces, lahat po ng statements na nasa loob nito will actually be executed at the same time. Now, you have to take note that multiple statements under this if statement will require a pair of curly braces, as I have mentioned. Now, let's take a look here at a very simple program that will accept an integer value and determine whether this is a positive number. Now, I know some of you might have an idea how to answer this program, but then starting from now on, I want everyone to think of a way for us to solve this using flowchart. So, gagawin natin to, di ba? Ang flowchart kasi, usually, so idadrag natin dito, this will be the start of our program. And by analyzing the problem here, sabi dito, it will accept an integer, yan, and determine whether this is a positive number. So, starting from this one, meron tayo ditong arrow, okay, or meron tayo ditong process in which yung process na yun will serve as an input. Yan. Input a number, for example. So again, rectangle represents process or input. Anything na ini-input natin. Yan. So go from the start of, the beginning of the program, pumunta siya dito sa may input natin. Input a number. So saan siya pupunta? According to the problem here, it will accept an integer value and determine whether this is a positive number. So, whether, meaning you have to have a decision control structure here. Yan, so pupunta yan dito. Tapos, you will be asking, is it positive? Now, I want everyone to at least convert this word here into a condition. Diba? Into a condition. So, ang magiging condition natin dito is, of course, alam naman natin, if a number is positive, meaning, for as long as the number is greater than 0, that alone is a positive. So meaning, we can just simply modify this program here in such a way na instead na magkaroon tayo agad ng input ng number, we can just simply declare Okay? Declare num, for example, equals siguro, yan, declare num for now. Diba? Tapos, based from the num, we will be putting here another process in which we'll simply input a number. Diba? It will input a number. Then, that number will now be stored. Store number to num. Yan. So, di ba naglalagay ako ng flow dito. Store number to num. Tapos, it will now check whether if the num is greater than 0. Now, if the number is greater than 0, that means, if yes, papasok yan dito. Yan, magiging positive. If no, oops, sorry. Dito tayo. If no, ano mangyayari? Ayan. Or wala namang sinabi na whether this is a positive number. So meaning, pwede na natin itong maidiretso sa, if the number is not positive, pwede natin siyang maidiretso agad dito kay ending agad ng problem natin ng program. So if it is positive, pupunta yan dito and it will end automatically. So tingnan natin, review natin. Diba? So you have to have a start here, the start of your program. It will now simply declare a number. Yan. The declare num variable, for example. You will now input a specific number and you will store the number to the num. And it will check the condition. If the number is greater than 0, automatic it will print a positive number. Ayan. Otherwise, it will simply, end. So, ganun po yun. So, kung i-convert naman natin siya into a very simple program here, gayahin lang natin siya, di ba? So, we have here positive number, for example. So, since gamit tayo halimbawa dito ng buffered reader, we have here public static void main string args, and there you go. So, ang nakalagay dito, declare number. So, mag-declare tayong number dito, and we will now be inputting. Diba? So, this is actually the process, diba, on how we input. Buffered reader, input, number, buffered reader. Actually, kahit hindi nyo na to ilagay sa mismong J-option, sa mismong flowchart ninyo. Yan. So, next, input a number. So, ito na yun. System.out.println, input a number. Then, what will happen? Yan. We have here try-catch method based on, of course, dito. So, alam naman natin to na this should be int. It will now accept, yan, the read line. Tapos, si catch will now simply print here a system.out.println, which is error, if this is the case. So, ngayon, i-store natin. Yan, i-store natin si number na type natin. Okay, dito kay num na variable. Integer.parseInt. Oops. Integer.parseInt in. Tapos, papasok ngayon siya dito kay condition. Now, take note, if you would like to check, okay, if you would like to check if the condition is greater than 0 in particular, wag muna tayo maglagay ng curly braces. So, meron ka ditong system.out.println in which the number is positive. And we still have an error here. Hindi pa daw siya na-initialized. So, sige, initialize natin siya. Yan, para yan dyan. Diba? So, again, this simply means that whatever statements just after or below the condition followed by the if statement dito, it will always be executed. Yung mga statements na ilalagay mo ngayon dito, for example, hindi na yun ma-execute. Ang ma-execute niya lang itong susunod. Unless you have placed here, yan, pag ganyan. Diba? Unless you have placed that. So, kung i-run natin yung program natin dito, Run natin yung program. Let's wait for the program. Ayan, input a number, 5. Number is positive. Run natin ulit. If, for example, we have placed here -5, diba? Nothing happened. And that alone simply satisfied the flowchart that we have here. Bakit napakadali, no? That's actually if statement. Ito naman, itong other program natin dito, it will now evaluate an integer input. This sample program, it will evaluate the input if it is a positive. This second program here, which is actually a modified version of this one, this time, instead of us adding or simply checking if the number is positive and negative, this time, meron ka na ngayong separate. Diba? Kumbaga, dalawang beses na magkakaroon ng checking. So, after ng inputting ng number, ayan, check mo ngayon if the number is greater than 0, yes, it is actually positive. And this time, ang susunod dito is another condition. If the number is 0, diba? If the number is 0 or less than 0, for example, papasok siya dito kay negative, and it will automatically end the program. Yan. So, magiging siya, kumbaga, dalawang beses. Ito, if the number is not greater than or equal to 0, end yung program. Kumbaga, dito ang balik niyan. Yan, pag nag-no. Pero pag nag-yes, pupunta yan dito. So, ganun po siya. Diba? So, take note. You have here two different if statement, pero ang na-execute niya lang ito. Tapos, yung sa second if statement niya, ang na-execute niya lang ito. We will talk about what we call the nested if statements in such a way na pwede mo ngayong ma-nest si if statement. Ibig sabihin, if statements inside another if statements, which is actually possible. Okay? Now, let's actually try to take a look here at another analysis. So when the user, say for example, the problem here is when the user input 5, the value is then stored in the variable prior to the conversion to an integer value to be stored in the variable num. Yung parang kanina, di ba? Now, the program performs the first conditional statement if the num is greater than or equal to 0. Since it results to true, it will simply print this one and so on. So, ganun po siya. Kagaya sinabi ko rin kanina, kumbaga dalawang beses mag-check ng if statement. Next, another example here is a program that will accept a number representing the day of the week. Thereafter, the program will display the equivalent days, for example. Okay, so assuming na hindi pa natin alam itong mismong program natin na to, 'di ba? So, ang magiging analyzation natin dito is we have the start. Tapos according dito, it will accept a number representing the day of the week. The day of the week. So we have here input 1 to 7. So meron ka dito muna sigurong declaration. Declare int day. Okay. Tapos after mo siyang i-declare, papasok ka ngayon siguro sa input number from 1 to 7. Okay. Now, it will simply check, di ba? It will simply check the number. Yan, it will now simply check the number or the day itself. Now, the problem with this one is that napakadaming pupuntahan nito kasi we have 7 different numbers, di ba? Na meron tayo. So, what you can actually do here is by adding 7 multiple if statements as well. Di ba? Kasi 7 So, 7 times. So, meron kang if day is equal to 1, perhaps. Tapos, meron ka rin ditong if day is equal to 2. Tapos, paulit-ulit lang yan. Oops. if day is equal to 3. Yan. So, kailangan mong ayusin yung ano mo ngayon, yung flowchart mo, di ba? So, kasi 3 beses eh. Yan. So, meron kang 3. Meron ka ngayon ditong 4. And if day is equal to 4. So, you just simply fix that. Kayo nang bahala kung paano nyo ayusin and so on. Diba? So, that's the idea. So, you have 7 different if statements na meron tayo. Now, per if statement na lalabas, if day is equal to 1, if it is yes, what will happen? It will simply print that day is a Monday. So, that day is a Monday. And so on and so forth. Tapos, mag-e-end na agad yung program natin. Diba? Napakadali lang namang intindihin ng flowchart. Basta maganda yung pagkakasulat nyo, wala kayong magiging problema. So, end. Diba? So, ngayon, since nasagutan nyo na to via flowchart, it's actually time for you to convert the problem into, somehow into its corresponding Java program. So, you have here, for example, gagamit tayo ng swing for J option pane. Diba? So, you have here, you will be declaring int day is equal to 0 or wag muna natin siyang initialize. Day, integer, that parse int, was J option pane that show input dialog, null, tapos enter or input a number from 1 to 7. So, it automatically stored dito sa day na to. Now, using if statement, tapos meron kang ganyan. If the day is equal to 1, what will happen? You have J option pane that show message dialog, null, the day is Monday. Ayan, tapos tuloy natin. You have here, have a nice day. Have a nice day. Ayan siya. So, ulitin lang ulit natin. Otherwise, second part here is 2. Tapos, let's change this into Tuesday. And so on. We have 3. Wednesday. We have 4. We have 5. We have 6. We have 7. And ganyan. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we have 7 different if statements. Kasi nga, tinignan mo eh. Diba? If the day is equal to 1, automatic dito. Otherwise, i-check niya ulit kung hindi siya day 1, papasok siya dito. If this is not satisfied, it will automatically go here. If that is not satisfied, it will automatically execute this line of code and so on and so forth. So that's actually how if statement works. And this time, we added here a double curly braces. Opening, closing curly braces. Okay? Or if you want, you can actually modify this in such a way na lahat ng have a nice day na to mawawala. Ayan. So kasi syempre 'di ba medyo mahaba yung code, we can actually convert this program in such a way na once lang magpapakita si have a nice day. So by eliminating all of the have a nice day line, J option pane, and eliminating the opening and closing curly braces, pwede natin siyang ma-convert. Alright, let's eliminate this. Ayan. Okay, so na-eliminate natin sila, di ba? Mas maiksi yung code. And once you run the program, ayan, mas madali siya. Di ba? So that's actually if statement. And it's actually much better. Diba? This is still the best solution. Tapos, yung have a nice day kahit sa last mo siya ilagay. Diba? Kumbaga minsanan after everything. Ayun, diba? Have a nice day. So, ganun siya. This is way better as to compare to this program that we had earlier. Okay, so another program here is for us to, same lang din, pero this time, meron tayong seasons. So, from April to June is spring, July to September is summer, October to December is autumn, and January, and so on and so forth. So, this time, maglalagay tayo ngayon ng month. Diba? Maglalagay tayo ng month, and based from the month, from 1 to 12, it will automatically check if that particular number belongs to winter, to summer, to spring, and autumn. But then, kung mapapansin nyo dito, medyo weird yung pagkakasulat kasi 1, 2, 3 is actually the same. So, kumbaga, isa-isa mo siyang if statement which is not really advisable pagdating sa Java programming. Although, this is logically correct and logically possible. In terms of the execution time, mas mahaba yung pagkaka-execute nito kasi i-check mo isa-isa eh. So, in order for us to make this one better, we will now be using what we call the logical OR operators. So, ang logical OR operators, kung natatandaan yung discussion natin before, logical ORs are simply an expression or, an operator in which both conditions, either of the condition should be true in order for the entire condition to be true. So, gawin natin yan. So, we have here int month. Declare natin. Tapos, ano natin dito? Month is equal to integer that parse int, and j option pane that show input dialog null input a number from 1 to 12, for example. Yan. So, instead of us adding here, yung month is equal to 1, tapos if month is equal to 2, so we can eliminate this by simply converting this one into what we call, logical OR operators. So, for as long as si month is equal to 1, or if the month is equal to 2, or the month is equal to 3, yan, ano mangyayari? Pwede nating ilagay ditong j option pane that show message dialog null it's winter. Ganyan. Diba? So, ganun siya. Magiging mas madali siyang isulat. So, if month is equal to 4, if month is equal to 5, if month is equal to 6, pwede natin itong i-copy, paste natin dito. This should be spring. Tapos, we can simply copy the entire program, statements. 7, 8, 9. Ayan. So, this should be spring. We have here summer. And we have here 10, 11, 12. Autumn. Ayan. So, di ba? Ibig sabihin, kapag ka naglagay ka ng 3, naglagay ka ng 2, or naglagay ka ng 1, automatic winter ang magpapakita. Ayan. Pag naglagay ka naman ng 10, automatic magpapakita dyan autumn. So that actually is possible. Now, you can also convert this one by using what we called the logical AND operators. Ang sabi ni logical AND operators, all of the statements inside here should be true para maging true ang value in if statement mo. So, in order for us to convert this program, iisipin natin si month or si input natin na range naman. So, ibig sabihin, for as long as I am inputting numbers from 1 to 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ibig sabihin, range, yan, it will result into true. So, paano natin i-convert yan? Sabi dito, for as long as si month is greater than or equal to 1, and at the same time, if si month is less than or equal to 3. Diba? So, sabihin, kapag 1, magiging true ito, magiging true pa rin to. Pag 2 ang in-enter mo, magiging 2 is greater than 1 is true. 2 less than or equal to 3 is true. So, this should be true. Kapag 3 is greater than or equal to 1, which is true. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Which is 3 as well. I mean, true as well. So, ganun siya. Ganun ang purpose ni AND operator. Magiging range. I-convert niya into particular ranges. So, ganun din dito. Kung i-convert natin, month. And, tapos meron ka ditong 4, 5, 6. I-ano natin to. Modify na lang natin yung numbers. 7 to 9. Tapos dito, 10 to 12. Ayan. Diba? So, which is actually better? Saan kayo mas komportable pagdating dito? So, ako mas komportable ako sa end statements kasi gusto ko kasi both of my statements are true para sure ball na maging true ito. Diba? So, yun yun. That's actually if statement na tinatawag natin. Now, yun yung if lang. Pero, we have another way to at least improve our program. And this is actually better approach. Kapag better approach kasi, comparing dito, if statement lang yan. Now, I would like to introduce what we call the else statements. Pagka else statement kasi, meaning, you have another keyword here na whatever condition na hindi nag-true dito sa if statement pa lang, automatic ma-execute si else statement. So, let's try to recall here itong si program natin na positive and negative number. Gawin natin siya ulit. So, we have here the start of the program. And we have here the declaration of num. And declare num, for example. We also have here input. Yan. Input num. Tapos, para mas maiksi, input number, store to num. Tapos, we have here a condition. Now, we already know that the condition here, if num is greater than 0 or equal to 0, yan, ano mangyayari? If it is yes, papasok siya dito. The number is positive. Now, yung kanina, if the number is positive, end na. Tama? So, magiging end na siya. Pero, if the number is actually negative, meron ka ulit panibagong if statement dito. So, di ba, after ng positive, magiging ulit yan. May panibagong if statement. But this time, you will be adding an else statement, which is represented as a no dito. So, this time, meron ka ditong no. And automatic pupunta yan dito kay end naman. So, ganun siya. This time, you have the keyword else naman na tinatawag natin. So, if we will try to recall the program earlier that we had here, gawin lang natin dito. So, int day, and tapos si day is equal to integer, that parse int, j option pane, show input dialog, null, enter a number. Yan. If day is greater than or equal to 0, you have here a word, j option pane, that show message dialog, null, number is positive. Now, instead of us adding another if statement here, we can just simply add an else statement, which works as, of course, diba? As if statement, but this time, yan. This is actually assuming na most of our, if this statement here is not more than 0 or equal to 0, automatic, Java will assume na pupunta yan dito sa statement na else, and it will execute this statement below. So, ganun po siya. If nag-type ako dito ng 5, mag-execute yan, hindi niya na to i-execute. Papasok na yan dito sa last part. Ito, dito. But, if, for example, nag-type ako dito ng negative 3, hindi ito ma-execute since this is false, automatic. Pag false yan, pupunta yan dito sa else statement and it will execute this statement here. Okay? Okay, next, we have what we called here nested if statements. When we say nested if statements here, this simply means that an if statement can actually be placed inside another if statement. Let's take a look here. Ito, gawin nyo na lang tong problem dito on your own. Pero I think I have prepared here a very simple. Tingnan ko yung itong seat work kasi sa inyo to, gagawin nyo to. Pero syempre, hindi ko ituturo kung ano yung magiging sagot niyan. Pero just to give you an idea what is if statement or nested if statement. Asan yan? Yan, nested if statement. Suppose that we have a problem here in which na mag-i-input tayo ng grade. Yan. Integer that parse int j option pane that show input dialog null, tapos enter your grade. Yan. So ang gagawin dito, ang mangyayari dito, pag nag-input tayo ng grade na for example 60 to 74, magpiprint tayo dito ng failed. Okay? Tapos kapag naglagay tayo dito ng grade na 75 to 79, magpiprint tayo dito ng dalawa. Kumbaga, meron ka ditong poor, and poor, tapos pass at the same time. Tapos kapag nagprint tayo dito nag-type tayo ng 80 to 84, meron ka dito halimbawang satisfactory, tapos passed. Tapos kapag 85 to 89, meron ka ditong good, passed. Dalawa ang magiging print, pero using nested if statement. So from 90 to 94 is very good, pass. Tapos 95 to 99 is excellent, passed. Ayan. So gawin natin. So check muna natin if the grade is, of course, maglalagay tayo ng grade na if the grade is less than, ayan, if the grade is less than or equal or greater than muna, if the grade is greater than or equal to 60, and at the same time end statement tayo dito, end statement if the grade is less than or equal to 74. Ibig sabihin nito, sa gitna ng 60 and 74, what will happen? Diba? So it will print here, issue message dialog, null, failed. Magiging ganyan siya. Diba? But then, if hindi naman ito nagpakita or hindi ito na-satisfy, pwede tayong gumawa dito ng panibagong if statement na, kumbaga, mangyayari dyan, for as long as the grade is greater than or equal to 75 hanggang kay 99, and hanggang kay 99, what will happen? It will simply print here or check niya muna, instead of printing, i-check niya muna if the grade is greater than or equal to 75, and at the same time, if the grade is less than or equal to 79, what will happen? It will now print what we called poor. Tapos yung dito, lahat na to is passed. Okay, ano ibig sabihin na to? This is how nested if statements are working. So you have an if statement, another if statement. So if nag-type ako dito halimbawa ng grade na 60, for example, ayan, papasok siya dito. Tapos hindi na ma-execute ito. Pero kapag nag-type ako ng grade na 78, for example, so papasok siya dito sa statement na to, and it will now check another statement or another if statement. Yan. If 78 is actually or belongs to this range from 75 to 79, it will print this one, and it will automatically print the past word dito. So, pwede natin ulit siyang i-modify or idugtungan. Kumbaga, 80 to 84. Meron ka ditong 80 to 84. Meron kang satisfactory, for example. Tapos meron ka ulit ditong 85 to 89. Meron kang good. So this is how cascading if statements are working. We have here 90 to 94. This should be very good. Tapos you have another statement here which is 95 to 99, which is excellent. Ayan, di ba? Tapos after nila, pupuntahan dito. Run natin yung program. Tignan natin if this will work. So, halimbawa, nag-type ako ng 63. Failed. Wala na mangyayari. Di ba? Pag nag-type ako dito ng 96, passed. Di ba? 96. Pero dapat, magpapakita is excellent. So, nakalimutan ko maglagay dito ng 99. Ayan. So, 94 to 90. 95. Yan. Excellent. Tapos pass. This should be 95. Nagets ba natin? That's how nested if statements are working. Okay? So, possible din yan na gawin natin, convert itong program na to by using what we call the cascading if statements. Ang cascading if-else statements naman, para rin siyang if statement na nested, pero this time, you have the following example. So, instead of us adding another if statement here, pwede ka ngayong maglagay ulit ng panibago na else if. Yan. Kung saan titignan mo, if the grade is greater than or equal to 75, and at the same time, grade is less than or equal to 79, yan. What will happen? Magpiprint si poor. Otherwise, mag-check ulit siya ng ganyan. 80 to 84. 84. Asan yun? Ayan. Ayan. Okay. Tapos print tayo ulit dito ng poor, fails. This is satisfactory. Gahin lang ulit natin siya. Else if, this should be 85 to 89. This should be good. Gahin ulit natin. This should be 90. Oops. To 94. This should be very good. And we have here 95 to 99. Excellent. And lastly, we will be adding the word pass. Yung word na pass dito, pwede mo ngayong ilagay yung word na pass. Actually, hindi dito sa loob. Pero, oops. I-modify mo ulit to kung saan dito na ngayon. Oops. Ayan. So, pwede kang maglagay dito ng ayan. This is past. Tapos yung else if mo, pwede mo ngayong i-convert ito in such a way na pupunta ngayon yun dito sa loob. Oops. Sa loob nito. Yan. Ito, pwede mo i-convert yan dito. Ganon. Diba? So, magic. So, meron kang if statement dito. Kapag ka ito ay nag-true, execute na to, the program will end. Otherwise, it will automatically enter here and print first the word passed, and will now be proceeding with the cascading if-else statements that we have done earlier. So that's actually how cascading if statements are working in Java programming. Alright, so let's continue our discussion here. So my part na to. By the way, the sample programs that I am providing in your module, I want you guys to at least do this on your own. Okay? So para mas maano natin, mas maintindihan natin yung pinaka-topics natin. Okay, so meron tayong mga season program dito. Meron din tayong another, yeah, the other types of program. Okay, now, this is actually the last part of our discussion in which what we call the switch statements. Pag sinabi kasi nating switch statements, it's an alternative to cascading if-else statements. And when we say switch statements, you have the following syntax. Meron ka ditong keyword na switch, tapos lalagay mo dito yung expression, you have the following cases in which the values will now be added as well. Let's take a look at this example here in which the day program is being written. So, dito sa day program natin, yung Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday sample program natin, we have in day. Oops. Ianuhin ko na lang to. Tanggalin ko na lang ito. This should be day. This should be day. Tapos, we have the switch. Ganyan siya. Sa loob ng switch statement natin dito is actually the day itself. So, instead of us adding a, an if statement, this is also possible. So, if the day here na tinype mo is 1, it will automatically print here a J option pane that show message dialog. Tapos nakalagay dito is that day is Monday. So, pwedeng ganon. Diba? And this is also an alternative way for us to create a program with, a decision control structure. So, kapag ka nag-type yung user ng 2, that is Tuesday. Kapag ka nag-type yung user ng 3 dito, that is Wednesday. Pag nag-type yung user dito ng 4, that is also Thursday. Pag nag-type yung user dito ng 5, that is also Friday. Pag nag-type yung user ng 6, Saturday. Diba? Mas maiksi yung code natin pagka ito. I don't know. Pero hindi to gaano ka-effective kapag malalaki na yung mga, kasi paano kung hindi mo alam yung number or yung mga values na itatype to be exact or to be precise. So, yun yung medyo mahirap, di ba? So, in this case, this is also applicable kasi it will simply check. Yan, it will simply check the value of day na in-input mo, isa-isa dito sa mga case na to. It will simply check out the cases here one by one. Alright, so let's actually talk about the seat work here. Ang seat work natin dito, you have if-else statement. Yan. You using the following, the if-else statement, you have to create a program that will, simply do that. So it will accept an integer value and thereafter display whether the number is odd or even number. Ano yan? Modulo. You will be using the modulo. I have discussed how to create or what is modulo dun sa module number 3 natin, na discussion natin. Okay? So, if you have some questions later on, make sure to at least ask me na lang para kung halimbawa hindi nyo mag-gets yung ibang parts dito, i-ano nyo lang sa akin. Inform nyo lang ako. Okay? Do you have any question? That is what we called if statements. So, yung performance task natin, it's also very easy to do. And I think it's really that, easy to understand as well. Medyo kailangan nyo lang siyang basahin because this is module, nakasulat talaga yung module natin in such a way na kailangan nyo rin siyang gawin on your own. So ayan, that's module number 5 and I think you are now allowed to answer the module number 5 seat works together with the performance task for module number 5 as well, the if-else statements, and we have here the switch statements. So, good afternoon and see you guys later on. Okay?